welcome into another episode of the Counterculture Podcast. I am your host, Christian, along with my great friend, co-host Taylor. And we have one of our special episodes. We have a guest on. I'm really excited about it for this week. We have Malia Shirley, who is the director of the Nebraska Freedom Coalition, also an ambassador for Public Square, and current med student too. We got to shout that out. She's working hard there, so that's important. So besides that, Malia, just kind of introduce yourself a little bit, and we'll just rock and roll into it.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for having me, guys. I love our interactions on Instagram, so was super excited when you asked me to be on the podcast. Like you said, my name's Malia. I'm a director with the Nebraska Freedom Coalition. I'm an ambassador with Public Square. I first kind of got into the political scene back in high school before, politics was cool. It was super nerdy back then, and no one except the hyper political kids were involved, and now it seems like everybody's an activist, whether it be in person or on social media. So it was definitely a different time in politics. But when I got to college, I got involved with Turning Point USA in its infancy. It was probably 2 years old at the time. The first conference I went to was only 300 people. So to go to a conference with 10,000 people now is absolutely insane, but awesome to see.
Yeah.
And then, like you said, I am a medical student currently because I believe in trying to take back every single institution, including healthcare, which is a very important and very corrupt one currently, I'm sure, as we all come to know over the past 2 years. So excited to be here with you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's right. Again, that Turning Point, it's just crazy to think how much they've grown. But, the healthcare industry isn't that bad, so it's not like they've always had our back, right? It's no big deal.
Right, totally not a for-profit industry at all. Not corrupt, not good with big pharma, nothing like that.
No, not at all. Dr. Fauci, as the person, as a stand-in for medical science, I mean, he is all-knowing, all-truthful. He is the science. That is true. His pronoun is science. I don't know, that was a bad
science.
Joke. Yeah, science. Yeah. So one thing. So really, because we got a ton of stuff we want to talk about. I think the first thing we have to talk about, just because it's fresh in the news right now. I mean, and it's also quite unprecedented. We've been talking about in a lot of different circles. If you follow the cultural political space for anyone, talk of national divorce, civil strife, civil war. It's gone through many different iterations, right? And obviously, this week, the FBI raided former President Trump's home in Mar-a-Lago, which, I mean, for me, when I saw the story come across when I was on my iPad, I was reading stuff and I saw I was in shock. I thought I read it wrong at first, and so for me, I know. I want to know, Malia, what are your thoughts when you saw that and kind of the fallout, and now following a few days after that? I mean, where are you thinking from what you've seen?
Honestly, I'm not surprised by any stretch of the imagination. If you have been paying attention over the last year or so, you know that, and it sounds very polarizing when I say it, and people are always kind of taken aback, but like the Republic is dead right now. It might be on life support. Like we can definitely turn the ship around, but we're running out the clock, and there is no equal justice under the law. There is no, basically what I just said. There's no equal justice under the law. We have a caste system. We have almost an aristocratic oligarchy, if you will, a ruling class of elites that live by a separate set of rules. And that doesn't just apply to being targeted by governmental agencies, whether it's the FBI, whether it's the IRS, which we've just seen 87,000 new agents being hired on, in an attempt to weaponize that agency, as well as all of the other institutions. It's a matter of rules for thee, but not for me. If you are in their club, you're fine. It doesn't matter what you do. if you're a Clinton, if you're a Biden, if you're an Obama, the rules don't apply to you. Even if you're Governor Newsom in California, you get to go out and live your life just as you always have, while you're shutting down your entire state, not allowing people to spend time with their families, like literally trying to dictate that people have to stay in their homes. And it's just, it's gotten to a point where I don't believe that an election will just fix it, right? And so
Yeah.
it kind of comes down to, where do we go from here? And I don't know that I have the answer to that, but I'm curious to see how it plays out.
Yeah,
For
I mean,
sure.
I definitely I agree with I mean everything you said. But I think, when you look at the situation again, I don't think it's surprising, especially because, it's no secret that the establishment is very afraid of a Trump 2024 run. And right now, well, it's funny because there was an article, I guess there was a poll that came out where many people after the news of the FBI raid basically said, okay, yeah, yeah, so I'm going to be voting for Republican because this is insane, right?
Yeah.
Which is fine. Now, granted, uh the GOP is not going to save us, right? I think, to your point, and this is the most important thing about it, is especially, don't get me wrong, for anyone listening, the midterms are important,
Yeah,
and we need to
100%.
get out your friends, and all that kind of stuff. However, one election is not going to change where we're all right
No.
now.
Yeah, like small steps. I think I've said it a few times. You got to start at like a local level and kind of work your way up.
100%.
Everybody's a politician at the end of the day, or at least when they get there, they kind of become a politician. And then I think you gotta figure out who you're really voting for. Don't just vote for a party, and then those people hopefully stay true to their colors, and then you can make a difference locally, and then state, and then all the way up to the top. I think there's too much control at just the big election that I don't think we can just fix it if we wanted to.
Right. Yeah.
Exactly. And that's like, I know everyone in the conservative circles, like, to your point, elections are absolutely important. We have to win those seats. You have to be actively engaged in the system. But at this point, it goes farther than politics. If Trump or even DeSantis, whoever, if any Republican gets elected in 2024, that doesn't solve the cultural divide that we're facing. That doesn't
Hmm.
fix the country's
No.
issues. If anything, it's only going to exacerbate it. And so then what? It's like, at the end of the day, we're left with, you going to your point, all politics is local. That's something that we say a lot at the Nebraska Freedom Coalition. We focus more on our down ballot candidates than we do any federal or even statewide race, because it's not, well, I guess if you're in like a very communist state like California, it is your governor that's locking you down. But in places like Nebraska, it's not our governor who's making these sweeping declarations, taking away your freedoms. If anyone's going to do it, it's going to be your city council members. It's going to be your school boards masking your kids. It's not going to
Right.
be the governor in a lot of those cases. And so at the end of the day, if we're not taking back our communities and changing hearts and minds and getting people to realize, like, hey, maybe you were a Democrat back in like the 80s and you're one of those blue dog, like conservative Kennedy Democrats almost, like, your party left you. If you love America, like, that's where we're at now. It's not even Republican versus Democrat. It's just,
Yeah.
do you love America and the values we were founded on? Because if so, that's not your party over there.
Right. No, 100%. And that's something that we've talked about a lot, like you were
Mhm.
saying to Taylor, is the focus on what's going on locally, because, to your point, I mean, we're in Texas, and everyone thinks, Texas is just rock hard, Republican, all this kind of stuff. And I mean, there are some deep seated, partially because of the culture of the state. But again, it was our local school boards, right, and our
Mhm.
local politicians that were masking the kids. It wasn't Governor Abbott, you know. Now
Yep.
he could have done more, but
Yeah, it's
I,
more
I
like the
guess you could say
mayors and the city
hindsight
council,
2020,
like you
whatever.
were
But yeah,
talking about,
it
school
was
superintendents.
right, the superintendents, right? It was Lena Hidalgo, right?
Mhm.
Of the Harris County judge, right, making these sweeping decrees for Harris County, saying we need to mask everyone. Be like,
But those local people are also a lot easier to remove
exactly.
and have influence on.
100%.
If enough people, I'm not going to say like a sit down, but 200 people come and start showing up, and your
Yep.
voice is easier heard. The problem is when
Right.
it was just a few voices and the police or the sheriffs were like escorting people out.
Mm-hmm.
It took enough voices to finally kind of make those changes, but that's why, at least I don't know how it was in Nebraska, but Texas shut
No,
down the whole mask thing way early
yeah,
on.
it's exactly like that. I mean, I think, and like Jack Posobiec says this a lot, where we are just at a point in our country where people are so complacent, they're so comfortable that they're uninvolved. And in order to keep a republic, you have to have engaged citizens. And that's really the
Yes.
trap that we've fallen into is complacency. And
Mm-hmm.
so having such polarizing events like this occur, it activates everyone. Like, that's what I'm saying. When I was in high school, no one was paying attention to politics. And now it's everywhere. It's in
Yeah.
culture, it's in media, it's in every facet of life, every institution. And now people are paying attention. It's almost like, okay, no, you can't sit on the sidelines anymore. You got to pick a team and we got to play. So that's really what I've seen. Just being involved locally in Nebraska politics is no one school board races were never contentious. Like, no one paid
Never. No.
attention, no one cared, no one could even name their school board members. And then they started masking kids. And you had hundreds of parents showing up to local school board meetings every single month. And I know I can speak to, I'm running a slate of candidates out in Elkhorn, which is the #1 school district in the state, the whole state. Of course, their metrics are mostly testing. But it's also Republicans outnumber Democrats in Elkhorn 3-1. So you would think we should just win overwhelmingly and without issue. But it was a very contentious primary. It's a nonpartisan race, so of course anyone could get through. And there's 3 seats up, so 6 people got through the primary, and our entire slate of candidates got through, all 3 of them, because they've
Nice.
been active in the school board meetings. They've been active. There's been so many grassroots organizations of regular people popping up, like apolitical people, just parents who care about their children and are becoming privy to what's actually being taught in the public school system, whether it's the critical race theory, whether it's the comprehensive sex education standards. They're learning about all of these things now because they're becoming engaged. And once, like, you're activating the mama bears here, like, they're not going to just let their kids run off and be indoctrinated. And one of my favorite
Right.
sayings is, you can't send your kids to Caesar and be surprised when they come home as Romans. And so
Mm.
we need to get into the schools. We need to take back those institutions. And a lot of the teachers aren't even necessarily favorable to what they're having to abide by. And so I think providing a voice and an outlet for just your average people who they really are, they're still apolitical. They don't want to be involved in politics, but they are because they have to be. And they want that return to normalcy. And I don't know that we can necessarily go back to normal, but we can certainly do better than what we have now.
Yeah, I think what's interesting from what you just said, what makes me think of is, what you were saying is this culture of complacency as a country, right? I mean, if you look
Yep.
about, because I think a lot about, when we think of the Department of Education and just how much the federal government has creeped into the lives of people over the last 50 years or so now,
Right.
since the 60s,
But
right?
in some
It's been
ways,
this
yep.
this slow marching decay of the country, and what it's made me realize is, you know the only reason America has not fallen as quickly as many other places into communism was the foundations were there that has kind of kept it at a slow march.
Yep.
But really, you got into the last decade or so, and it's just they're just foot on the floor, gas. They're just you're
Pedal
pushing
to the
through,
metal,
and
yep.
yeah, it's starting from Obama to now. When you look how much the country has transformed since his presidency, it is pretty wild. I mean, it's
Yeah.
absolutely just insane how
It's
much the country has
crazy.
changed in that time. But
For the sake of acceptance, though. because most
and
people
that's the thing.
already were complacent, and they're like, if it doesn't bother me, then why not? And I think you made a good point. Is we're seeing the first step, the first pushing back, as you were talking about.
Oh yeah,
Because our core values were holding it at bay for the most part, but we relinquished a lot of ground. Now we're actually seeing a push back, and it's because the mama bears are coming up. We parents are getting involved because you know that state-run education system's always been okay. Why rock the boat now? And this stuff's creeping out of the woodwork because we receded so much ground that we're like, whoa, you're doing what? What's in this book, or
right.
what whose
Yeah.
bathrooms are which now? And you're seeing all these people step up. Their voices are getting heard because, I mean, all the way down to a local school board. I mean, for an institution like that, they were getting to do whatever they want. And I mean, I saw a TikTok that just came out the other day of where a mom was posting and said, "What did your school tell you?" And it was about how they were telling the students not to go home and tell their parents if they were getting bullied, out of fear that parents would get upset and come to the school with a weapon. So they said, if you're getting bullied at school, don't go home and tell your parents if you're getting bullied. And so this mom found out and obviously went straight to social media, and people are like, oh wow, Karen this, or it depends on both sides of the aisle. But because at least of social media, I think we're actually getting to see this kind of stuff because the media is not going to do it.
100%. And I think the rise of social media has been an absolute game changer for us on the right, because we've been able to kind of take back that institution of media that's been so long corrupted. Like, people aren't watching the news anymore. And if they're watching the news, they're not watching CNN, they're watching Tucker Carlson. So being able to, I think social media has just brought about so much transparency that didn't previously exist, because whether it's, I mean, there's pros and cons, right? For better or worse, whatever people are saying can be true or false, but they're able to get the message out, and then people are able then to take that information and discern whether or not it was true, and whether or not it's worth taking action against. And I think that's something really interesting, and something a lot of people don't understand, is something you both alluded to, is that this is not new. This has been decades in the making, and we are absolutely behind the 8 ball at this point. And it's like people are just now getting engaged and being willing to look at the overall system. And I mean, it's your classic, and it sounds so hypothetical and theoretical because it happens, but the best predictor of the future is history. And so when you look at how all of these Marxist revolutions have come about, they don't happen in 5 or 10 years. They happen over a matter of decades, where you have all of these people indoctrinated and then infiltrating these institutions. And that's what we've seen when we saw the hyper
comes from education too.
Yeah, exactly. The hyper focus of ensuring everyone gets a college education, and putting such an emphasis on liberal arts, right? Like, you don't just need to be in STEM to go to college. You can go to college for gender theory or African studies or whatever the case. And it's like, do you really need a degree for that? Or can that just kind of be your side hobby and you go study that at the library on the weekend? Like, and it was just a way to indoctrinate an entire generation. And now we're seeing the effects of that in every institution, whether it's education, healthcare, government, media, like not just mainstream media, but like Hollywood media.
Well, not only that, but it's a way to get control on somebody. I mean,
absolutely.
You come out with no offense, a worthless degree, still working at Jamba Juice, and you took out government subsidized loans.
She's going to med school. I mean, it's at least useful, right? But
right. No, 100%.
You're talking about like the gender studies degrees,
the dance theory, all that. Like, it's okay, like you said, if that's a hobby, or if it's like a minor or something, kinesiology. But you come out and that's your major. You come out and you're more dependent on the government. So
what do you do with that degree?
You can't.
Right. You
got to pay back all these student loans that you took, and you got to figure out how to get a job. So of course, you're already indoctrinated. When you hear more of these, like, student loan buyback and all this, of course you're going to like, that sounds great to me. You're still going to buy into this because they want you to be more and more dependent.
Well,
100%.
absolutely. The more that the government can get their grips into you, right, sink their
Right.
teeth in, right, the more they will, right, because that's all the government can do. And you know, what's really, I think for me, it's been so weird to see how, when you think of the populist left and the populist right, a lot of us are saying the same thing, for a very different reason.
Yep.
And I think, because I always think back, because really, when you really think about it, the election of 2016 was so bizarre. It was so interesting because you had populists on both sides of the aisle, right, that were rising up,
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
right, and of course, for the left, sadly, it was just stolen from Bernie Sanders. I mean, there is no
Yep.
question that the
Yep.
DNC was absolutely involved with trying to install Hillary Clinton as president, because basically it was her turn, right? And their
Yeah.
point of view, right? That's their idea, right? Not because
100%.
she's a good president, because, well, she deserves it. Well, we can't say why, but she does, right?
Right.
Still, the best tweet ever was when she told herself "Happy Birthday" to the future
To the future
president.
president. Yeah.
It's the greatest self-own of all time.
Well,
But it's just wild. You look at that, that time, and I think that affected a lot of the left, and populist left. A lot of them did actually end up voting for Trump just to get something
yeah.
different.
Well, that's just going to the point. Sorry, not to interrupt you, but when I worked for Turning Point, or I guess I wasn't working for them at this point. I was just involved on campus with them, and Turning Point was not what it is now, right? It didn't carry the polarization, the notoriety that it does now. Like your
Yeah.
average people on campus had no idea what it was, and the number of like Bernie bros that we converted over and brought onto our side, because we're like, look, we're both anti-establishment here, and we like, what they don't want is us working together. And that's something that, again, like I always refer to Jack Posobiec, but that's just because I learn a lot from him. I speak to him a lot, and I really admire just his thoughts on everything. And he always says, like, it's not left versus right, it's not black versus white, it's up versus down. And that's something that, the Marxists are actually right about. It is a class warfare. It is the elites versus the lower class, but where they get it wrong is in their reconciliation of that, their solutions to that. Like,
Right.
no, more government is not the answer. No, taking money away from people who earned it and giving it to people who don't is not the answer. But we agree on the problem. And so when we can kind of start there and then educate people on why our ideas are better, and they are better, and they do win,
Mm-hmm.
that's when you really, like I said earlier, start to change those hearts and minds. And that's why, like you alluded to, that's why we saw so many Bernie people voting for Trump.
Yeah. We did. And what's really important about that too. And I follow Jack as well, so he's so funny. He's
great.
fantastic. Maybe one day he'll be on the pod. That'd be awesome. So but when a lot of things he talks about, right, and like you said, it is the elite, because there really is a sort of, you said this earlier, like aristocracy to the United States. And the solution to that, right, like you said, is not these top down Marxist ideas, right? It's actually reverting back to where we came from as a country, right? Which is leveling the playing field, right? As far as everyone gets the same opportunity, right? Now, what you do with it is what you will, right? If you're a loser, you're like, you don't do what you're supposed to do, I'm sorry, right? But it's not our fault, right? It's no one's fault. And when you look at, again, you look at the transfer, this, I always go back to the 60s, because it was just such a transformative period of time. And I think, to what you were saying, these Marxist revolutions aren't, it isn't overnight. It isn't overnight. It's over decades. And I think with the way things are now, because we're so quick to be able to get information, right? Because we have we have a high functioning computer in our pocket, right?
Yep.
We have more information at our disposal than ever before. And I think even back when we would be studying like U.S. history, you learn about the revolution within like a couple weeks. Well, the United States Revolution was over like a 20-year period of time,
Yeah.
right? That it was just slowly happening, and then all of a sudden there was big events like the Boston Tea Party
Catalyst.
and things like that, right? But even the Civil War, right? Leading up to the Civil War, it was again a couple decades of this ongoing battle with all these kind of things, and you have these big events like Bleeding Kansas and but in the moment you don't think about it, but of course Bleeding Kansas ends at the beginning of the revolution, right? But these things blend as time goes on, and I think that's what's really hurt the country is we don't even realize how these things we don't realize that we're in the moment when it's happening. I mean, and so that's where it makes me.
Well, it feels like we're in the moment now, whether
Well,
people
we're
realize
in
it or
a
not.
moment. No, certainly we are at a
What
weird.
happened the other day is like
Oh, it's wild. I mean,
crazy.
it's wild because you have that, and then you had like the judge, the magistrate that signed off on it
Mhm.
is like connected to like Jeffrey Epstein like pretty closely. So like that's just whoever you are, you do with it what you will. Whoever's listening, but I think it's weird. It's very odd. It's a very odd coincidence. And it's not like it's a very odd. It is weird,
It's like
and then
it's kind of funny, but not funny, haha, funny weird.
yeah, right, yeah. But and then you have like today, it was breaking a couple hours ago that like Merrick Garland. At first he said I had no idea about this happening. Then it's like no, actually I personally signed off on it. I was like that's like But again, it's just proof that the establishment hates you, right? And I always stress this point, and people like scoff at it, like, oh, whatever. It's like, no, these people hate you. They don't care about you, right? They have their own plans, their own agendas. Not everything is monolithic, right? Not everyone in the FBI is some whatever. But you have to realize, yeah,
but it depends too. Are the agents, the foot soldiers, at some point, are they going to stop following orders? Because that was a question that was asked a while back, even about police during, when it was about Blue Lives Matter, BLM, and all that. We were kind of like getting to a point where it's like, cops are leaving left and right. At some point, if this ever came to a head, I mean, are people going to just say no? Because at the end of the day, yes, they're wearing a badge, but they're Americans too.
Well, it's hard because you even think about. I always think about what Michael Malice talks about. Again, there's something that when you think about the evil things that happened, whether it was Nazi Germany or Soviet Russia, if you had asked those people before that if they would have ever done the things they did, they probably would have told you no, but they did do it. And so we have to ask ourselves, or the moment you say I would never do that. I know better. It's like, no, you're stupid. You don't understand human nature,
mentality,
but it is, we have to, and that's why it's important for people to speak out, right? To say, and to stand up against it, because a lot of times they will just follow orders, right? Even if those orders are evil, it's just
the Nazis were just following orders, and that's what they say, right? And I guess it comes down to, Socrates talked about it, and all these philosophers. It's a never ending question: is do you follow the rule of law when the law is unjust? And I think, at least for me personally, like I know where I fall on that side of the aisle, but I'm also not in a position where I kind of have to, right? Like I'm not the one enforcing those things, but I can say I would leave before I would ever enforce those things. But then my father, for example, who's in the military, I have a lot of family, a lot of friends in the military, and I always ask them when Biden got, whether you want to call it elected or assumed his position, appointed, whatever you want to call it. I asked them, I said, so you take your oath, and your oath is to the Constitution. Now, what happens when the commander-in-chief starts giving orders that are antithetical to the Constitution? Where does your loyalty lie? And everyone that I ask, of course, the circles I run in, they're all going to say, well, my oath is to the Constitution, right? And the issue with that, though, is that then, as we're seeing with the vaccine mandates, all of the good people, all of the people who aren't just rubber stamps and the foot soldiers of a corrupt regime, they all leave because they don't want to enforce those unjust laws. They don't want to turn their backs on country and Constitution and our founding values. But then what are we left with? We're left with a military of yes men, and that's no better. And so I don't have the answer, but it's certainly an issue that we need to kind of face head on and give some real thought to.
Right. Well, I think what it comes down to is again something that you've already alluded to, but and something that we talk about a lot is culture. We have to win on the cultural level. And here's the best part is that on the culture, we have a winning message, right? That's the reality is because again, what we're talking to is the average person. Like this is what is so important. The average person in the United States, what do they want? They want the ability to get a good paying job
Mm-hmm.
and feed their family. That's
Yep.
the average person. That's all they care about.
Left alone.
Yeah. They say, just leave me alone. I want to be able to go to work,
Mm-hmm.
pay for whatever I need to, feed my kids, go to my company or church baseball league, go to my kids t-ball.
Right.
That's what they care about. They do not give a crap about anything else. And we can be the ones to say we want that for you too, but we have to you have to pay attention to what's happening right now. And that's I think what's almost the good thing about politics being kind of infused in everything. I think to try to take a brighter side approach is, we need to have people more engaged, right? Again, complacency is what has gotten us here. And the more we can get people engaged, again, you don't have to be activists, right? You don't have to be there every weekend, right? We're not asking that, but you can do it in the way that you live your life.
Yep.
Right. And say things, right. And that's what's so important. But again, that's why, it's important for conservatives to lean into the unpopular quote unquote social issues, right? And that's why you're actually seeing people like a JD Vance or a Blake Masters,
Yep.
right, win these things because they're saying, hey, like Blake Masters, I can't remember, it was a couple months ago, he basically said, yeah, this is really bad, we need to stop these illegal immigrants, and we need to get rid of them, right? And people are like, oh, that's terrible. How could he say that? All those things they say. You're xenophobic, racist, all these kind of silly things. And what's funny is the average person is like, yeah, I think,
right.
I agree with you, right? I feel
like that's what you see with the Carrie Lake primary. She won in every single county in Arizona. Like, America first, your state first. We say Nebraska first here in Nebraska. Like, we're Nebraska first before anything else. But of course, like, we care about America first. And America first is a winning message because the average citizen is still patriotic and prideful in America and what our country and our values stand for. And something that, like Mike Cernovich says, he goes, regardless of what the media or Hollywood or all of these institutions portray, America is still a conservative country. Yep, at its core is still a conservative country. And I'll say that's something like I myself, and I know like Charlie Kirk, for example, we all used to identify as a lot more libertarian than we do now. And I've kind of really come around on this point because
it's because they moved the goalpost.
They moved the goalpost. And then also when you realize, like, in my mind, I've started almost to equate the libertarian ideology, not philosophy wise with the socialist ideology, but in its idea of it is a utopia. Like, you will never be able to have a libertarian society because there will always be aggressors. And to operate in a libertarian society, you have to operate on the non-aggression principle. And that's what we've seen. Conservatives for so long have just wanted to be left alone. And so we disengage. We leave everyone else alone. And when that happens, we cede all of this ground that has now been, that they've been able to come in and take and, like you said, move the goalposts and really push their own agenda, whether it's popular or not, because at the end of the day, you both, I mean, we're all saying the same things, right? Like, politics is downstream from culture. You have to win culture first.
Well, I mean, it's very simple, not to go back to like elementary school. It's the triangle. You know what I mean? Right now, like you were saying, libertarians, even a lot of conservatives, so long as they didn't rock our boat, we didn't really care. You got your victims, you got your bullies, and you got your bystanders, and too many people are bystanders.
I forgot about that.
No, for real. And what do they say? A bystander who does nothing and watches is just as bad as.
Yes.
I think a lot of, you can call it a red wave, you can call it whatever you want. I think a lot of Americans are waking up. And that's the difference between, sure, America at its core, most people are patriotic. And I think
they've
sat back and let people with the smallest voice be the loudest. And I think hopefully it's coming back around and we can, like as you said, turn this ship around. It's not going to be overnight. It's going to be a battle, but I think we can win the war. But we need to start now.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you look at, like you said, the average person, this is what I think is the average person does love the country. Like they do admire what we stand for, because on principle, America does stand for something good. On just a secular level, America is the city on the hill, the shining
The
city.
rest of the world knows it.
Yes,
that's why
and
the rest of the world looks up to us. A lot of smaller countries, they want to immigrate here.
Well, that's why that's why they're trying to get here, right? No matter who it is, right? And that's why it's so upsetting when you have someone like Biden, who is very weak, is clearly self-serving.
Griner or whatever over in Russia. You have this American privilege until it's over there, and it's.
I saw the funniest thing I saw was she complained about that they didn't read her rights to her when she was arrested. It's like that is it doesn't work like that, because guess what? They don't care about your individual rights in other countries, because that is
like Mother Russia don't read rights to you. It's like,
yeah, right. And so it's wild to me, and that's where it makes me upset. I've definitely we've said this. I'm certainly not a America needs to be the world police sort of person, because I hate our involvement in places unnecessarily. But I think it's important for America to make the strong stand to say we are the biggest here, and we are going to f you up if you step out of line, right? And I think that's right. Important.
100%. And like I will say, and a lot of people that I run with, like locally, politically, they've all said as well, Trump was the first president to ever really embody what we want our foreign policy to be. I don't want the interventionist that Bush was. I don't want the isolationist that even Ron Paul espoused. Like, we have to be present, we have to be involved, but that doesn't mean that we go inserting ourselves into everyone's problems. And
it's more of a F around and find out kind
of. Exactly. And Trump was the epitome of that. And love or hate his tweets, like, I'm sorry, but his Twitter was the most effective, like, defense policy we've had in decades.
I know, right? So awesome. Oh.
Like, I'm looking at the button now. Don't make me push it.
So good, so good. Like the stories that are coming out that he basically threatened both Xi Jinping and Putin. Like, yo, if you f around, I'm going to nuke your capital of your country. It's like, and I think there was like
half the time they don't know if he's kidding or not.
Exactly, so like because you have to. They're gonna just hedge their bets. They're gonna hedge their bets. Like they're gonna be like, I don't think he's serious, but what if he?
But he's crazy enough.
He might. He just might, because he's an egomaniac. He just wants to watch the world. And he is, right? I don't care. I mean, to a certain extent, you have to have a hell of an ego to run for president, right? Mm-hmm. There's sort of shame in that, But I think about you saw it. I mean, immediately when you have Biden take over, you have this weird interventionalist stuff, right? We're going back into not Saudi Arabia, I can't remember. Syria, yeah. We a military presence. Yes, it starts with an S. It's in the Middle East, right? No, but we're going back into Syria, right? More boots on the ground. You have the movement of China, right, and clearly showing that they are more than willing to take Taiwan, which I am very concerned that could happen before 2024. I would not be shocked if China just said, "The hell with it. It's ours, and you're not going to do anything about it," because Biden wouldn't do anything about it. And of course, Ukraine, there is no question that this would not be happening if Donald Trump was president. Like, I'm sorry, how do we know that? Because every president before Donald Trump, Putin was doing these things. Whether it was Bush, Obama, he did do those things.
We literally, right? We had as close to world peace as we've ever gotten under Trump. Like, and there's no other way to say that. People can deny and whatever all they want, but like, take what happened in Israel and in Jerusalem and restoring the capital and everything going on there, the ceasefires between different countries and
the Abraham Accords. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And it's just like,
I know everything going on with the Gaza Strip and everything. Like,
that's right. Yeah,
they're still shooting missiles at each other.
Yeah,
but it's all about Ukraine right now. Because that's where we're sending money. We got to keep
the money laundering at its finest.
We have to continue to fund the Vogue photo shoots with Zelensky and his wife, right? They look just gorgeous, right?
Just gorgeous.
Or did you see the
God, I hate
he's an
Pelosi
actor,
Jr.?
right?
I know.
Did you see that Pelosi Jr. went with Nancy to Taiwan because he's on like some of those mining boards? Or
Oh
something?
my lord!
Yeah.
Of course, no, I didn't. But I'm not shocked.
Insider trading that she was
Yeah,
in.
but we don't raid those houses.
System because you have verifiable evidence that Nancy Pelosi engages in insider trading, as does half of Congress, and we did
even
that.
If she doesn't,
Dan Crenshaw.
Even if we say no,
thank you.
Where does the money come from?
He is our congressman, just so that's why he makes me mad. Well, not anymore.
Wow.
Wesley. Well, we got redistricted now. Wesley Hunt is going to be. Well, he will be our congressperson because the Democrat that's running against him in our district is like. I don't know why they're bothering. I don't think they've spent any money. I haven't seen. I don't know. No one knows who's running against Wesley Hunt, and maybe he'll be all right. I don't know. I don't know him very much. I guess he'll be fine. But yeah, and that's what I talk to people about. It's like, look, this is not just Nancy Pelosi. Again, it's the establishment, right? It's not just Nancy Pelosi. It is Dan Crenshaw, right? And other Republicans.
I need to run for office if I want to make some real money. Apparently,
hey, you know what? That's a good point.
I don't know how you can be on a $200K a year salary and your net worth be 135 without anybody raising questions. Meanwhile, 87,000 new IRS agents are going to be auditing you. If I was like a self-employed person, 1099, whatever, and I like didn't keep certain receipts, I'd get audited. Like, oh, well, you got 15K unaccounted for.
That's why you get a good tax person.
Yeah.
But hey, no, those 87,000 IRS agents.
It's not illegal. It's loopholes. You got to use them.
But no. Those IRS agents, they're there to bring down inflation, guys. It was the Inflation Reduction Act, right? I mean, that's what the bill's for, right? It's not going to do anything, but that's what it's for, right? I mean,
inflation's at 0% right now. So why?
That's right.
Technically, we're not in a recession. I hear.
No, it's a transition. It's a transition.
Transitory period. Yes.
Oh my God. The Orwellian nature of this administration is just so
and the people
laughable.
On the left who can still like just go along with it, and everything that is like preached to them.
They're useful as idiots. I'm sorry. There's no other way to.
They're so in over their head
because
and blinded.
Again, especially when you have actually a good number of people who would identify as liberal, like that. Listen, they're like, this is. You're lying. This is really bad. Yeah. Like, this is not good. Again, when you have people that are like, even prominent people, right? Like, I was listening to Naomi Wolf on like Tim Cass. It was last night or the night before, or whatever. Yep. It's like a lot of liberals are in there. They're like, I can't do this. This is wild. Like, what are we talking about here? You're talking about abortion up to 9 months. We're talking about 13-year-olds getting mastectomies. You're like, I can't go along with this. This is ridiculous. Right, this is ridiculous, but that's.
Y'all see that even Denmark just now came out saying that minors 18 and under cannot get the COVID vaccine now.
Right, because it's silly.
Because they said they're so low at risk that they're not going to do it. Like, you cannot in that country if you're under 18 get it.
What's so interesting to me, especially as a medical student, at my school.
Here we go. Yeah.
And I'm not gonna put my school on blast. I'm sure people can find it if they're really that interested. But the two professors, I don't go to school in Nebraska, I will say.
Okay.
Which, let me tell you, trying to stay on top of running politics in another state while you're in another state for school, wouldn't recommend. But we're doing it. It's fun. My professors, the ones who are the most rational, the ones who don't wear masks during class or on campus, they're the immunology professors. They're the epidemiology professors. And
that's so funny. That's hilarious.
It is. And my immunology professor, he's my favorite because he's straight out of Russia, like fled Soviet Russia, came to the United States. So he doesn't get too political in class. He doesn't ever say things, but I know he knows what's up. And he said the other day, he said, there is no reason for children to be getting the COVID vaccine because there is he said, no children have died from COVID. I can tell you that. He goes, if you see an article that says so, he goes, send it to me because they're wrong. Because they literally, it gets into the really immunology, like medical based of it, but they quite literally don't have the receptors on their cells for COVID to affect them. They're not developed yet. They're not there. So it's
That's bold
a
of you to
crazy
assume
time. It's
that they're
well,
not
he's gotten a little talking to by the administration on some accounts because he was being a little too vocal about how the vaccine, and mind you, as an immunology professor talking about how vaccines work, he was saying that the vaccine didn't work as it was intended to. It didn't do what it was marketed to do. It didn't do what they wanted it to do. And for all of these reasons, actually, it can lead to immunosuppression and it can make you more susceptible. And they really didn't like that. And so it's like, you're in these institutions and how much can you push back and fight back? And it's the never ending cycle. I know my parents were terrified of me going to medical school because my undergrad years they have a lot of PTSD from that because I made my undergrad institution's life a living hell and they kind of made mine a living hell. And my parents were like, keep your head down, just get your degree and get out of there. And I'm at least lucky that I'm attending an osteopathic medical school, a DO, as opposed to an allopathic medical school, which is your MD schools. And I don't know if most people don't know the difference. I will credit Trump. I'll credit Trump. His White House physician was a DO. And your osteopathic philosophy is a lot more holistic in nature. It's not just here's a drug to treat the symptoms. It's let's look at your environmental factors. Let's look at your lifestyle. Let's look at all of these other things that can play into why you're experiencing the symptoms that you do and how we can treat the underlying disease as opposed to just treat your symptoms. And it's kind of a mold of both Western allopathic medicine and chiropractic, holistic medicine. We do the osteopathic manipulations that you think of that chiropractors do. And I mean, DOs can be surgeons, they can be whatever medicinal specialty you want to go into. They have all the same credentials as MDs do, but we actually have extra training. We have more holistic training. And that's my father's an osteopathic physician, which is why I knew that was the route I wanted to go down. I didn't want to go to an MD school where all they're going to do is teach us how to write scripts for certain symptoms and then make more money for big pharma. I just wasn't interested in that. And so it's really interesting when you start to look at all of these different factors that just go into everything. But yeah, my immunology professor is my favorite, which I think is interesting.
Yeah. Well, I mean, again, he's just he's just opinion as
educated man.
as an expert. YouTube, okay, I'm just saying for YouTube, this is a man, expert in this field.
Yeah,
right? So we are not saying these things. No. He is saying these things.
Yeah, he's teaching the actual science, the actual data, like what evidence is supported by what we're seeing in the data and in the literature and everything. He's not going off script, if you will, but it doesn't follow the narrative. And so
it's funny because last I checked, this is America, not China or anything.
Not communist Russia.
Well, we're almost there.
It's like,
don't worry.
He's literally there to teach you what he's talking about. He's not just a history professor, giving his opinion. That's his field. So he's supposed to not tell you the truth or say the opposite. I don't get it.
Yeah.
He's an MD, he's a PhD, like he's one of the smartest people I've ever met. Like this guy knows what he's talking about, but they don't like what he's saying because it goes against the grain, it goes against the narrative. And so, they give him a talking to and they say, well, maybe don't teach that then. It's like, what do you mean don't teach that? This is the most relevant thing to what's going on in the world.
Right. Yeah. Well, maybe if Trump is to take back the White House, maybe he should have him be the new head of the NIH and fire everyone.
No
kidding. and turn the NIH into a secretary and him. That's it. But so what's really I think what's important. Or what I want to definitely dive into is again kind of something we've alluded to multiple times is fighting back on the culture thing. And so what I'd love for you to actually talk about some more, Malia, is actually about public square, because It's something that is starting to become I'm seeing more and more things. The CEO of Public Square was recently on Tim Cass. I've talked about it a lot.
Huge.
So
I
I
love
don't know
I
what
love
it is.
I love
So
I love I love
like break it
Tim
down
Cass.
real simple.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So y'all should definitely go check out that. He's on Tim's show, so you should go check that out because I'm sure he'll go. But I love for you to kind of tell us about Public Square and your involvement within it. Just because it seems like it's something that's going to perhaps be a way for I'll say the anti woke to maybe
Yeah,
get a leg up and
absolutely.
fight back.
Absolutely. So I swear if I quote Jack Posobiec one more time, kick me off, but this one's so good, is that he says, stop giving your money to people that hate you.
Yes.
And I think that is, if we can take anything away from what's going on right now, it's that. Because like you both have said, the elites hate us. These institutions hate us. Why do we keep giving them money and giving them power? What we need to do is create, and we are right now, we're creating a parallel economy. And Public Square is probably the best resource and tool to utilize right now in order to do that. What it is, it's an app, it's a free app that you download, and you go on, it sorts you by geographical area, and it shows you all of the businesses that have signed on to Public Square, either been referred to by an ambassador like myself or people that work for the company, or they've gone and signed on and signed up themselves to be listed on there. And these companies that are represented on the app have to align with at least a number of the 7 core values that Public Square has. And the core values are just your average American values. Like, you believe in freedom, you believe in allowing people to, participate as they see fit, as they don't see fit. Not It's one of the requirements is, like, you can't be on this and then go donate your money to Antifa or Black Lives Matter or things like that. Like, you can't give your money to, as in the businesses can't give their money to organizations or politicians that are antithetical to American values. And so if they align with some of those core values and they're listed out on the app, they're listed out on the website, they're welcome to join. And what you can then do is you can shop online through the platform. You can just locate which businesses are around you. You can divide it up by categories. So if you're looking for restaurants, if you're looking for real estate agents, like, it has every business facet you can think of, and it shows you the businesses that believe in the same values you do. So when you give your money to those businesses, you know that it's going to contribute to preserving our foundational values. And that was something that was really important to me. Obviously, they're filling this niche that is so needed and people are looking for it. And the influx of users that we have, or that we've had since our CEO Michael was on Timcast, like, people have been looking for whether it be an app or a platform like this to utilize. People don't want to give their money to Amazon and to Target and to all of these big woke corporations. And a lot of the time, the people that are listed on these businesses are small local businesses. And I'm a huge supporter of, like, local small business. I would absolutely rather give my money to a mom and pop shop down the street who needs the money to pay their employees directly than continuing to, raise the multiple 6-figure salary of the CEO at the top of the company. And that's a very populist idea too. That's what a lot of those Bernie bros were always raving about back in 2016, was, why do all these CEOs get to make all this money while your average everyday people are kind of falling behind and feeling left out? And there is a lot of truth to that. I don't discredit the CEOs. Obviously, they have a service and people are willing to pay for that. And if you're able to build up a corporation like that, good for you. Especially, a lot of these CEOs don't have college degrees, which is so shocking to a lot of people, because, well, how can you make that much money? How can you be so successful without a college degree? And it's like, well, college is actually a scam. So maybe look into that a little bit more. Charlie Kirk actually just released a book on that, The College Scam. And
Yeah.
it's It's a really incredible platform. It's free for users, it's free for businesses to sign up. And it's just a way for us to really start forging that path and committing to our own values the way that the left commits to theirs.
Awesome. That's amazing. That is really exciting, especially because it's just focusing on, again, like you said, a lot of the local stuff. But I mean, honestly, a company of any size could probably get onto Public Square, which is fantastic,
Absolutely.
and hopefully we'll see in the near future, with the more, of people like us, speaking out and everything, that larger companies will start to say, hey, you know what? Maybe we can just say, hey, look, we're just not about it. And again, what's so funny about it is I'm sure, the critics will say, oh, this is some crazy right wing, blah, blah. But there's nothing, again, this is why I laugh a lot of times with the left. It's like, when you make these sort of values right wing values,
Yeah.
you're just making people hate you. I mean,
Yeah.
because why do they have to be right wing values? Why can't we just, like we've talked about, like, why can't loving the country and being patriotic be an American value? Like, why, again, and that's what's sad, of course, nowadays. When you're driving around, when you see an American flag in front of someone's house, you almost automatically assume that they're someone who's
crazy.
conservative,
Yeah.
right? Which is wild, right? It's wild that
it's like a big red A on their door or something,
Yeah, it's wild, but that's where we are. Where truly it is if you see someone with the American flag, you just assume, like, oh, they must be more like libertarian, conservative, or Republican, right? Because a Democrat wouldn't have they have a BLM or Pride flag or Ukraine flag or whatever the hell, in front of their house, or all three, right? They'll have
it's
all
like
three.
Now if you do fireworks on the 4th of July, it's like conservative.
Yeah. Clearly, there. Yeah, it's like we need to make it to where that idea is as silly as it actually is, and this is where there's value in, and this was, I can't remember who I was listening to, but they were talking about, the biggest thing you can do when you're talking to the left sometimes is actually just make fun of them.
Yeah.
Because it's to not give them legitimacy of their idea, right? Because when you give them, like, the time of day, almost, right? This doesn't mean you're rude or mean to people, but when you give them the time of day, it almost, that gives them the legitimacy they're looking for. Whereas if you're like, that idea, like, that actually sounds kind of dumb,
right?
Or just kind of laugh at what they say, right?
And I think
there is value there.
And I think that's why someone like Alex Stein, Primetime 99 on Instagram, is becoming so popular, is because he just makes fun of it. He just shows how absolutely insane their ideas are at its core. Like, he goes to the Texas state capitol when you have pro-abortion people protesting, and he doesn't try to debate with them. He doesn't try to convince them why he's right. He stands there and films them and calls them baby murdering losers. Like, that's what we need. That's the reaction that they deserve. Like, we don't, you said it perfectly. Like, we do not owe them anything. And by playing into their game, that only legitimizes them. And it's not incumbent on us to do that.
Right. And speaking of Alex Stein, the biggest example of that is when he, like, the whole little controversy with him and AOC. Because I don't know if you saw this. There's a video he was in DC.
Big booty Latina.
He was like, AOC, my favorite big booty Latina. It was the funniest thing I've ever seen.
And it's so funny because she's all about it when she thinks that he's like a fan.
Yeah. Oh yeah. She was like, oh yeah, but then it was even funnier. Yeah, what's even funnier is her reaction on Twitter afterwards. Is she was like, "This is terrible," and then she took it down because she's like, "I don't want to give him the time of day." But then she brought it back up, partially because it showed. And what's brilliant about it, I don't even think
during all this, she was just pacing in a room like she didn't know what to do.
Well, here's the thing. Because she's I'm gonna put it back. This is her. She's such a narcissist. She couldn't help but talk about it because it's about her, and she wants it about her. And I don't even know if Alex was trying to do this. Maybe he was, but what he revealed is that it doesn't matter what you do. It for a lot of them, they're so self-absorbed that they can't help themselves, right? And that's the advantage that we actually have, is that these people cannot help themselves. They cannot help it, right?
They
and that's
dig
why
themselves
it's
a hole
important.
because they want to be in the spotlight. Yeah.
And this is why you have to just, again, call them, like, silly names, but then also it's just ask them, make them stand for it's like, because I saw this video, this was going around libs of TikTok today, of this like therapist who was talking about how like we need to stop vilifying, pedophiles, right? She says
Yeah.
maps, but she's pedophiles, right? And it's like, it's important for us to say, hey, everyone, look at this woman's a psycho and she's terrible. Do you think it's okay for pedophiles to be around kids? And of course, the average person is going to be like, no.
No.
Right. And they're like, right. So you need to say something about these psychos or they're not going to stop and they are going to come for your kids. They already are coming for your kids. Right. And that's where it's like and ultimately you have to have fun, right? You have to have a smile on your face, right? And just go with the flow, right? Because at the end of the day, like you said, these ideas win. Right?
Yeah.
Ideas like public square. And again, this is why I think we are seeing more people stand up, right? That are the apoliticals, right? That because they just want to be left alone. They want to be able to live their lives. And again, we're seeing that that's a winning message because of a lot of other cultural things, right? Because even look
we're
at
not being allowed to be left alone anymore.
Well, first off, you're not allowed to, so you might as well get engaged.
It's getting down to even how we use our speech, such as pronouns. It's not like how you want to be called; it's how we have to call you now. And so it's going against, what we do. It's down to where we use the restroom. It's, what our kids are learning. It's everything.
Yeah.
So we can't sit back anymore because now it's affecting us.
Right, exactly. But again, we can win, right? I even go look at silly examples. Like you look at Top Gun Maverick, one of the best, probably the best movie in the last 20 years.
So good.
So good. Oh,
how well did it do? Because
it's a $1 billion film. Yeah. Or and again, it's not like it was outright like, well, I mean, yeah, there was a giant Mary. Anyway, it was super patriotic, right? But it's and it's awesome, right? It's just a great movie. But then you have, like, we were talking about this before we started recording, like The Terminal List, right? Mm-hmm. It's a great piece of media, right? Everyone loves it, right? But critics are like, oh, it's right-wing fantasy. No, it's just a badass show about a badass doing cool things, and he's American, and
because
and that's awesome.
Have your
and that's
sprinkle
just cool
of wokeness,
right?
Then they think you're right.
It's like, that's where it shows us, right? These things win, right? And when you have Lightyear, which is abysmal piece of garbage, right? That should have been like $1 billion movie for Disney, but they had to quietly throw it on Disney Plus because no one's going to see the damn thing.
Yeah, I sent you that picture. I was at Target the other day, and they had an aisle end cap, and it said everything is 24 or under, and all it was Buzz Lightyear stuff.
Yeah, because all these parents are looking at it and be like, no,
because they can't sell it.
Well, no, you can't sell because
have you seen Disney Plus lately? It's so Buzz Lightyear, when you log into Disney Plus, it's the main banner. It shows up on trending. It shows up in action. It's like 4 tiles.
Yes, it does. Yeah, it does. And I ignore it every time,
Mm-hmm.
and it because it's like, you tell me you hate me, right? To our point, right? So therefore, I am not going to do the things you want me to do, right? Now, granted, obviously, yes, we have Disney Plus, 3 kids,
you got
again,
right?
Yeah, like my battles, and that's what I think a point too we could say here with this is what we've been talking about is we're not telling the average person like you have to strip yourself of everything in your life, right? It's not possible necessarily, all kind of stuff, but you can do certain things, right? You can, go on public square. Yeah. You can't go on public square. You can focus on where can I go for these businesses? Where can I do this, right? Do I go to Walmart or do I go even my, a good example, right? I know HEB has come under some fire for some little woke things here. We can fight that battle, but it's a state corporation, right? It started in San Antonio, right here in Texas. Like, go to HEB instead of Walmart, right? If Walmart, whatever.
But you're also more likely to be able to change HEB if you don't like something.
Correct. We're more likely to change that versus changing Walmart. Yeah. We're not going to change Walmart, but maybe we can change HEB, which is like more of a it's within our state, right? Yeah. Everyone outside of Texas know what I'm talking about.
They don't know, but if
Texans
you're here,
know what
HEB
I'm talking about. But so it's just, that's where this is. We although, to what you said earlier, Malia, we conservatives, the anti-woke, whatever, we were thrown back on our heels, right? We got punched in the mouth, and and now we're looking around like, oh my God, like what's happening? But we see as soon as we engage, there is movement. I mean, just think about, since COVID happened, how many things have happened to counteract the regime. And so I mean, the regime is flailing in so many ways. I mean, the liberal establishment 100% is losing control, right? We're seeing the more I think about the famous line from Star Wars, the first one with Princess Leia. It's actually a really good quote, is because she's talking to, sorry for the nerd moment, but she's talking to Governor Tarkin, because she tells him, she's like, the more you tighten your grip, the more star systems will slip through your fingers, right? And it's a silly quote, but it has a powerful message
right now.
Yeah, it's like the more because they are and that's why people shouldn't get discouraged, right? Yes, we saw the thing with President Trump, and that's not good, and we're at a really weird kind of nexus point. But the more that they tighten the grip, the more that tells us that what we're doing is actually working,
right? Or the more
and
that
winning.
there was people on the fence, kind of like still left leaning, but they're like, some things I don't like the way they're looking. Something like that swung them over.
Yeah,
they're like, wow, that was a huge overstep.
Right. I mean, you had even what was it, Governor Cuomo say, the FBI better really say something, or it's like,
he should have just stayed quiet.
Yeah, well,
people were already forgetting about it.
Yeah. You should have kept quiet, because they're like, hey, wait, you killed 13,000 people, right? We need to put you in jail, sir. But no, again, when you have even like Andrew Cuomo coming out and saying, like, that's when the regime has really played their hand really hard.
Yeah. Well, and that's what so many conservative pundits say, is that the propaganda wouldn't be necessary if they were winning.
That's right. 100%.
They are pushing so hard because they know they're losing. And the harder they push, each force, my nerd side, the science part, like every force has an equal but opposite reaction, right? Like the pendulum always swings back. So everyone, a lot of conservatives are really up in arms about, and as we should be, at the state of the country right now. But I welcome it. I say, go farther, keep pushing, because watch what happens. Like, if you thought Trump was bad in 2016 as the reaction to Obama, can you imagine what the reaction to Biden is going to look like?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, especially because I think what's important is, President Obama was very slick, right? Very, smooth, everything. Oh, yeah. I mean, he was. I'll give him credit, man. He was as slick as it came, absolutely. But he was, but also he hated the average American. Right? There's no question about that. And you're right? People had 8 years of it, right? Because again, we gave him a second chance, right? Well, not me, but I voted for Mitt Romney. That makes me cringe.
Isn't that crazy? That like back then,
I know it's so like, wild.
Mitt Romney, yeah, him for sure. But it's because prior to Trump, no one really knew the depths of the deep state ingrained in both parties, right? We were still very much like Republican, Democrat. And then Trump went in and exposed all of them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it is funny, right? Again, you think about 2012, which again, there, when you look at the 2016 election, there were some states where Mitt Romney actually got more votes than President Trump, right? When you look at 2012 versus 2016, right? But obviously, Hillary Clinton is the worst person on the planet, so no one voted for her,
Right.
But again, and now we look now where, I mean, the average conservative, right? If they're paying attention, if you mention Mitt Romney, they're like, ugh. They despise. They just find him despicable. Of course, he despises you. So whatever. But again, to your point, and that was besides the foreign policy, which was the greatest part of the Trump presidency, no question. I do not is how much the president really showed the American person how corrupt everything was. Like you said, Malia, for every aspect, every institution of the federal government on both sides of the party, and again. And along with that, he finally gave the Republican Party a spine, which they still are quite spineless, right? Because I mean, which is just wild. I mean, you have Kevin McCarthy coming out like, we're gonna, when we take back the House, we're gonna have hearings. It's like, I don't care about hearings, right? Marsha Blackburn, I heard her like, we're going to call Christopher Wray. I'm like, I don't care about calling Christopher Wray to another stupid Senate hearing. Do something.
Yeah, exactly.
Do something. Like, don't just get these little clips, right? They want the little sound bites for,
Yeah, exactly. Well, and that's my senator, Ben Sass, is the epitome of the sound clip senator, where he literally hides in his basement more than Joe Biden. But the second he can sit in a judiciary hearing and talk about how great America is, I'm like, bro, where are you? You're not fighting for America. You're not fighting for your constituents. You're not fighting for anyone. You're just as guilty as every other complacent representative in Congress. And it's frustrating to say the least, but that's something that I always say is trying to mobilize and activate these everyday people is that, like, I'm sorry, but your 2012 politics is dead. We're so far past that. Like, if I have a representative sitting there talking to me about lowering taxes one more time, like, don't get me wrong. That is just that shouldn't even be a conversation. Like, you should just automatically be doing that. But if you're not standing up there talking about, like, we need to get pedophiles out of school, we need to get critical race theory out of school, like, if you're not talking about the social issues, if you're not taking a stance on culture, you're a bust. Like, we don't have time for you. Get out of the way.
Right, 100%. No, absolutely. And I've said this before. It's like, I love cutting taxes as much as the next guy. But
Right.
I am more than happy to pay a little bit more on taxes to have a more sustainable culture and
because in the
sustainable
long
country.
term it'll return.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I don't care about paying an extra 0.5% in taxes. That doesn't matter to me. Okay, what matters to me is that the country I
You don't
live
think
in.
it's going to happen either way? It's already going up.
Well, yeah,
Like every year
yeah,
it goes up.
yeah, exactly. So it doesn't matter, right?
But the problem is we're seeing it go elsewhere.
Exactly.
If this was getting reinvested or reinserted back into America, whether it was through schools, hospitals,
oh, absolutely. Like,
healthcare,
you think about the amount of
veterans.
how much money have we given to Ukraine now? I mean, it's like, what is it, $60
Billions.
billion?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, billions of dollars. And again, it's like, you think about all the issues that both the left and the right have complained about, right? And I would
that
say
they
even
agree
across
upon, that could be fixed. Yeah.
that we could have at least get some serious traction into, right? And nothing, right? I mean, I've even talked about this, and this has come up a lot with, Roe v. Wade and the abortion conversation that's been, circling everywhere, right? Because it's all anybody can talk about in a lot of ways. Is, they'll say, well, we should have longer parental leave and women should be able to have a year off. I'm like, okay, I don't care.
Right.
That's fine. I don't care about that. I'm going to ask you to take things from other places, but I'm okay with that. I have no, and that's what's so funny. And that's what a lot of times that's what shows they're very disingenuous. But it's like, we don't, like, the average conservative has no issues with that. It's like longer parental leave, absolutely. Even if you want to say universal, even if you want to say paid health care for women that are giving birth, that's fine with me. I honestly, I really don't care, right? If we want to say that the government is
like,
going
show
to,
me how can we pay for this?
The government is going to take care of women that are actually doing the most important thing, in my opinion, that they can do, which is have a baby. Okay, I think that's good. I'm going to ask you to take things from other places, right? But we can have that conversation, right? Because I don't care about taxes that much. I want culture. Tell me you're going to fight so that this country can be here for my kids, right? That's what people want to hear. Like, to your point, it's like, look, tell me you're going to fight for us for school choice. Tell me you're going to I can be safe, for God's sake, where I live, right? Tell me those things, right? And this is something I heard a while ago, and this is from something that President Trump said in 2016. Because they asked him, what do you want to do? He said, I want to make, what was it? He said, I want to make everywhere a safer place, right? I want to give every American, a better place, basically a better, and the David Frenches of the world, everything. You can't do that, blah, blah. It's like, you're missing the point of what he's saying. What he's trying to say is he wants to create a better country, right? It's not necessarily a policy thing. Sometimes it is, but it's the way people feel. Which again,
you think that'd be something everyone wants, but
you would
instead they're like, all you hear is a soundbite. Well, when was America ever great?
Well,
it's like, what?
But again, that just goes to, there's people with certain ideas, and they're trying to push these certain agendas. That's all it is, right? I mean, I had a friend who was asking me, because there was this video of Jalen Rose, the pathetic ESPN commentator, who was talking about how, whenever, because a lot of times when people say, who are the greatest of whatever, right? They'll say the Mount Rushmore, right? Who's on the Mount Rushmore of basketball players or whatever, right? Whatever, it's used as the Mount Rushmore of greatest action movies, whatever, right? And he says we need to stop using that because that's insensitive to Native Americans and things like that. And my friend's like, are these people serious, right? Or are they are they real? I'm like, no, they're not serious, because that is a ridiculous idea. They know it, but they gain power out of it through victimhood and emotional manipulation, right? And so they'll do whatever it takes to
and that's the
gain
only way
the
they can
power.
win. Yeah,
Yes.
that's the only way they win, because they can't win on message. They can't win on policy. They can't win on simply loving America. Like, what are they left with?
Right. Well, this is what's important.
It's all about emotions.
Right. Well, and here's what's important, though. I will give credit, because, of course, for conservatives, everyone knows the line from Ben Shapiro, right? Facts don't care about your feelings, which is true. But the same is true on the opposite end, which is feelings don't care about your facts. And this is where I think and this is where I think why the conservative movement and message is gaining traction is, yes, facts don't care about your feelings. I love that line. I agree with it. But we're hitting on an emotional. We're hitting on a heart level, and that's why we're resonating with people. Is, you love your kids, right? No one should do this to your kids, right? They shouldn't talk to your kids this way. Let's do something about it, right? Let's protect your kids, right? You care about these things, right? I want to help you protect these things. I care about them too. I love this country. You love this country. Let's do something about it. When you hit people on an emotional level, right? And luckily for us, I do believe we have better ideas, like you said, and we can back it up with facts and reason and logic, but we need to hit people in the heart. We need to hit people here. Yeah, exactly. You have to, right? Now, granted, again, this regime is making it easy, right? When every time Biden comes out, he's displaying how much he despises the average person. So he makes it very simple, right? He makes it very simple, right? By lying to you. And that's when people, because I've had people say, well, he's never said these things. He doesn't say that he doesn't like it. It's like, if someone lies to you repeatedly, do they like you? Do they respect you? Like, well, no. It's like, right. They despise you. That's why they do that.
Are you also listening to the things that he says? Probably not, because the media doesn't report on it. But some of the things he does say, like, no, he really does hate you. Like, he thinks so little of you that it's not written into any kind of script. It's just some off the gaff comment, because that's what he genuinely believes. It's like a Freudian slip.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that is, what is so important for people to realize is take him for what he's saying, right? What, you don't have to, do not believe the White House statement, a day or two later. It's like, well, it's not what he really meant. It's like, well,
he doesn't have cancer. What he meant was,
yeah, it was, yeah, but it is. It's funny, because I think I was like, well, what should I believe, the White House staffer, or should I believe the president out of his own damn mouth? Which one is truth? I don't know. Snopes, can you help me out here? Can we get a fact check, please? Yeah, is the president lying, or is the White House staff lying? So what? Someone's not telling the truth, but again, it's important for us to continue and just power through. I mean, we've talked about this time and time again, but it's important is we have to keep pushing. So I think I think that's good, because I think we've had a great conversation, but you obviously, you still have, I'm sure, more studying to do, or just life to live, and we have stuff we had to. So I want to leave. I want to leave with this, right? So with everything we've talked about, and Malia, you're very involved, again, with someone that is involved on local politics in Nebraska, but you're very much involved, and know what's going on, even nationally. What is something you can leave whoever, people listening, I guess something positive, looking forward, what is your message to someone that's listening to us? We've had all these conversations about what's going on. Why should they be hopeful for where we're going?
Because at the end of the day, I genuinely believe that the power truly does lie with we the people. It's just, we have to be willing to take it. And that's where we kind of get back into the culture of complacency. We've just kind of allowed whether it be the establishment or the elites or whoever you want to blame for the situation we're in, we've relinquished our power. But our foundational values, our founding documents, everything allows the people to take the power back. And we are like, it's not going to happen overnight. Nothing happens overnight. But to see from where I was in high school to where we are now, the amount of engagement of the average citizen, I really am left with a lot of hope for the future. Turning Point's big campaign theme for this year is the rise of the citizen. And I really do like get chills when I think about it, because it's just so foundational to what we believe to have the people in charge. And the structure and the foundation is there for us to utilize. We just have to be willing to step up. And I think there are enough people who are willing to step up, who are actively engaged. We, in the conservative movement, like I'm sorry, but we have so many cool people like doing awesome things, whether it be Michael and the Public Square team, whether it be Turning Point and Jack Posobiec and Charlie Kirk doing all of these awesome events, like engaging the youth. And there's so much going on now that wasn't previously happening in the conservative movement, that I really do think we are at a turning point, and we can win. Our ideas do win. Our messages win. And in the end, if we're all willing to unite behind those shared values, they can't stop us. And they're going to try, but like we keep saying, they don't have the winning message. They don't have anything except their power. And when we take that from them, even at the most local level, like with, I don't know, no one really follows Nebraska politics unless you're in Nebraska politics, but we just overthrew the entire establishment of the Nebraska Republican Party. And because they were elitist, they weren't serving the people. And so we had absolute conservative warriors across the entire state getting so many average people involved in the party system that we overwhelmed them. We went in and we quite literally took it back. One of my biggest political mentors, he has 2 rules. Number 1, show up. Number 2, know the rules. Know how you can win. You have to show up and you have to know the rules. When we do those 2 things, we can't lose.
Awesome.
I agree with everything you said. I think with something cool that is kind of what we're getting to, and it kind of excites me because it's something that even before I was political, it's always resonated and stuck with me for some reason through school, is that, and it's sad that it's taken us to get this far to kind of get there, but is the downfall of the party system. I think we are voting for people finally, and what people are standing for, and you're voting for a person, not a party. I mean, all the way back from George Washington himself, he said that the party system was going to be the downfall of America.
Yep.
And we saw the corruption. We saw how you're voting. I mean, it's sad that when you go to a ballot and you have all Democrat or all Republican, you can just check down. You're not even voting for a person. Half the time, people don't know who they're voting for anymore because they don't even care. They're just going to vote down the party line. And I think we're getting to a point where it's a people's movement and we're voting per the person. And the fact that you were just saying in Nebraska, you upturned the whole Republican side. It just goes to show that it's not for the party. It's, what you're standing for. I mean, you can say conservative, but I just say it's patriotism. So
absolutely. Well, this has been awesome. It's awesome. So I guess your Instagram handle is at Malia.Shirley _ sorry, yes. Malia _ Shirley, and we're gonna have her Instagram on the video, so you should be able to see. You should give her a follow. Very funny, very funny. Always fire with memes. Always. As the right usually is in general, right? But she's very fire with her memes. yeah, exactly. Memes will win the culture war. And so as always, I usually say in this beginning, I'll say make sure you go and like, subscribe, share the show with your friends. And then, of course, go on Apple, Spotify, leave us a 5-star review. Again, also share the show with your friends if you're more of a podcaster. And we love you guys, and we will see you next week.
Thanks so much, guys.